Okay, well, we're reading from Second Corinthians chapter 1, verse 23 through chapter 2, verse 11. First thing I want to say is we have to always remember that this was written by Paul more or less around 2,000 years ago. It was not written in English, and when it was translated into an older version of English. So we really need to read this a few times to really understand what Paul is saying. Just to sometimes it just helps to look at it. Sometimes you might need to rearrange the sentences, but this is something that's easy for us to understand if we just put a little work into it. One other thing that a lot of people will commonly do is just use a different translation of the Bible. But if you're going to do that, I would say you should use a website like Bible Hub, because then you can see a side-by-side comparison of any individual Bible verse of all the different translations that are available, whether it's NIV, ESV, the Berean. I personally don't just jump and read the NIV because some Bible versions will leave out some information. So, I mean, it might be obvious if you look at the King James Version and you see this chapter has 29 verses, and then you look at a different translation and it has 28 verses. So what information was lost? That's a question you want to ask yourself. So I recommend always sticking to the KJV, but if you get stuck, then do a side-by-side conversion of multiple versions and not just one. But so let's read through this and try to just untangle what's being said. So verse 23, moreover, I call God for a record upon my soul, that to spare you I came not as yet unto Corinth. So what is Paul saying? He's saying basically, well, first of all, you just have to understand that he's writing a letter to the people of Corinth. He's not coming in person. So in the first few verses that we're reading for this lesson, he's explaining why he's writing a letter and not coming in person. So in verse 23, he's just saying, I want it to come. I'm not coming sooner because I basically wanted to spare those of you that are in Corinth. And God knows what I'm saying is true. So that's basically what he's saying. He's evoking God in the middle of this sentence just to say, like, God knows what I'm telling you is the truth. And he's saying, I didn't come sooner because I wanted to spare you. I didn't want to cast too broad of a net because there's some sort of an issue that's happened amongst this population of Christians. So there's some sort of issue that's maybe causing some division. And Paul doesn't want to just come and squash it, because then he's going to seem like he's like some sort of a judge or bearer of bad news. So he's going to send a letter to help smooth it over before he comes in person. Verse 24, not for that we have dominion over your faith, but are helpers of your joy, for by faith ye stand. So what is Paul saying? He's basically saying, I'm not here to dominate your faith in God. He wants to help them find joy, because their faith is what helps them to stand and to be to be better people and to be a better community. So he's not. So like I said, he's saying he's not here to just dominate you and control you. He's here to help build up your faith, though. Let's look at chapter 2, verse 1. But I determined this with myself, that I would not come again to you in heaviness. Verse 2, for if I make you sorry, who is he then that maketh me glad, but the same which is made sorry by me? So what's Paul saying in these two verses? Paul's basically saying, I didn't want to come back into person too soon, because I don't want to make you feel depressed and sorry, because like I said, he doesn't want to come and lord over them and bring judgment. So he doesn't want to bring a spirit of of heaviness or sadness or judgment when he comes into person. Because if you think about it, Paul's probably, I'm not sure where he is right now when he's writing this letter. He could be in a different part of Turkey. But basically, if he's going to travel a long way, and it's going to be a lot harder to travel back then, he doesn't have the luxury of just jumping on an airplane and flying over or getting in an air-conditioned car. So if he's going to make a long trip to get to Corinth, he'd rather it be a more festive and joyous occasion. Because if he's there and he's gonna start like punishing people because of this strife that's happening amongst the members, then who's gonna be there to help him feel better after he's made this long trip to get there? Who's gonna help cheer him up and make him feel better? So let's move on to verse 3. And I wrote this same unto you, lest when I came I should have sorrow from them of whom I ought to rejoice, having confidence in you all, that my joy is the joy of you all. Verse 4. For out of much affliction and anguish of heart I wrote unto you with many tears, not that ye should be grieved, but that ye might know the love which I have more abundantly unto you. So Paul is giving some kind words. He's explaining that he has a lot of confidence in the people of Corinth. He doesn't want to overburden the whole group with sorrow with this arrival. He also just wants to remind them that he loves them and he's thinking about them and he cares about them. So that's what these two verses are basically saying. Verse 5, but if any have caused grief, he hath not grieved me, but in part, that I may not overcharge you all. So what is this saying? Like I said, this is not written in standard 21st century English. So we need to look at it a few times to really unravel what Paul is saying. Paul's basically saying he's aware that there's some sort of strife that's going on in Corinth. But whatever grief that they're experiencing, it doesn't affect Paul because he wasn't there. He wasn't affected by it. And as such, he doesn't want to blame everyone for the actions of a few. So if one or two people are causing strife in the church, he doesn't want to come in and start like punishing everyone. So what we're going to see in the next few verses is that he wants them to work it out amongst themselves. So verse 6, sufficient to such a man is this punishment, which was inflicted of many, so that contrariwise ye ought rather to forgive him and comfort him, lest perhaps such a one should be swallowed up with overmuch sorrow. So what's being said in 6 and 7? Paul's basically saying, whoever started this grief, whoever's doing this that's affecting so many of you, you need to forgive him. And you need to comfort him, because you don't want him to become overwhelmed with sorrow as well. So if you think about it, you don't want the people who are wronged by this person to start thinking about plotting revenge. And that's one way you could overwhelm one person. So if one person, like, I don't know, let's just say the church members bought a birthday cake for someone, and then the person went to go pick it up, but then he was just being selfish and just started eating it along the way, and by the time he got back, the cake was gone because he ate the whole thing. That's going to maybe make all the members mad. So if every member of that community went and got revenge on this man, it would be the punishment that he would receive from each individual member would be magnified, because it's like if there are 10 people that are affected, that's 10 people that might punch him versus just 10 people losing out on a slice of cake. So the punishment he might receive might be inordinate to the crime. That's just a bad example, perhaps, but I mean, you can think of other examples besides someone stealing a cake, but there's a way that people can be feel like they've been wronged by someone, and they all might want to gang up and then get revenge, and then the revenge that they get on this person might be more severe than would be just if the person just went and stood before a judge or some impartial third party. So Paul doesn't want the victim to be overwhelmed. He just wants them to make amends. He wants them all to just talk it out, make amends, and then be forgiven and come back together as a loving community. So let's go to verse 8. Wherefore I beseech you that ye would confirm your love toward him. That's what I was saying. He wants them to confirm their love to the culprit. So let the person know, okay, we don't approve what you did, but we forgive you. You're still one of us. We're not going to kick you out of our group. Verse 9. For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things. So Paul is basically saying he's writing to see if they're going to be obedient in this and everything else that he's been saying along the way. So if he gives them a heads up that he wants them to forgive this culprit, and then he comes and sees Corinth maybe a few weeks later, and he sees that they're still fighting over the same issue, that's going to be a sign that they weren't obedient to what he was saying about forgiving this man and carrying around a grudge. But if they do forgive him, that's going to be a pretty good testament that if they've been obedient in this, perhaps they've been obedient in all of his other teachings. So let's go to verses 10 and 11. To whom ye forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything, to whom I forgave it, for your sake forgave I it in the presence of Christ. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. So what is Paul saying in 10 and 11? So Paul is saying he will be in agreement with the people of Corinth if they forgive the culprit that was causing this strife that he's confronting them about. So if they forgive him, Paul will forgive him. And Paul's also saying he's going to forgive for the sake, not just for their sakes, but also just for Christ. He's saying he's going to forgive them in the presence of Christ. Like, as an ambassador of Christ, he's going to forgive. He's trying to just build up a spirit of forgiveness amongst the members of the Church of Corinth, just so that they don't carry around grudges and that they can have a more loving and kind and charitable atmosphere. And this is good for their sakes, and it's also just good because it's going to help them to be more Christ-like in that sense. And in the final verse, he's talking about, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. So they can't be ignorant of how Satan operates. Satan will try to get an advantage over you by making you carry grudges, or just to... it can start off with petty things that people are angry about, and then it can build up until a number of smaller petty things that you normally might brush off could build up and make you really angry, and then cause strife, and then maybe even cause people to start leaving the church or to split. So Paul wants them to just understand that Satan operates by he doesn't always have to send an army to come kill you. He can just needle you with small things. So let's look at another example. Let's just say I were to loan my car to one of the church members here. If that church member is saying, Minister Timothy, I need you to loan me your car because mine's in the shop and I need to go pick up someone from the airport. If they took my car and then they started driving it recklessly, just driving too fast on the interstate, weaving in and out of traffic because they want to get to the airport and back, and then they crash my car because they rear-ended someone that was at a stop, when if they had been driving a bit more sensibly, they could have avoided that accident. That's not really fair to me, and it's not fair to my car. The person really should apologize and try to make amends. I know people criticize the Old Testament, but the Old Testament does give you some good guidance about how to make amends when you find yourself in situations like this. So if you accidentally killed someone's oxen, for instance, you should replace it and then give them another to compensate, because it's going to probably take you some time to raise enough money to buy two cows or two bulls or whatever the case may be. So giving you the second one would be like, here's a penalty for the inconvenience of not having your cow that I accidentally killed, or if you if you steal from someone, you should pay them back the money you stole plus interest. That's the kind of thing. You might say that's not fair, but it is fair. It's like it's going to teach you a lesson to be more careful, but it's also just fair because you're inconveniencing someone by stealing from them or killing their cattle or wrecking their car for that instance. So the person that wrecked my car should really be the one that goes out and pays for the repairs and helps me into a rental car to help me with the inconvenience of not having my car so I can get to work on time. So, but nevertheless, I even if you do all of that stuff, we should be able to. I should be able to forgive you and say, well, it's okay. I understand you needed my car. Please be more careful in the future. Maybe next time just use Uber. I might not loan you my car again, but I'm not going to hold a grudge against you for the rest of your life. I'm thinking that's that woman that wrecked my car. That's that man that, that spun out on the interstate or whatever, what the case might be. So this is mostly about Paul. Paul is explaining that he's not going to come in person just yet because he wants them to take some time to smooth over the differences between them in the Church of Corinth. And he wants to come and see a more festive and happy situation. So he wants them to work it out and forgive each other and not to carry grudges, because carrying grudges is not going to be... It's going to just lead to more long-term harm if you don't nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife likes to say. So you really need to squash your differences with people and just get over it, because... Remember what Jesus said when Paul, was it Peter that asked, how many times should I forgive my brother? And if the number was is extremely high, you need to be forgiving. That's not to say you need to be a punching bag for someone, but you do need to be forgiving and show grace and try to help someone to improve.